So, Razmig, great to chat with you.
Thank you, likewise.
And before we get started, I heard that there was a very special message coming in this morning.
Yes, and I think we have it queued up just from this morning. Can we have it on the screen? If not, I'm going to have to read it. We couldn't get Elon Musk here in person, but he regrets not being here, and he's got a message to the Armenian community. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I can't make it to Yerevan this time, but hopefully next time in person. Excited about bringing Starlink to Armenia, working with the local tech community on something very exciting, projects from space to exploration and developing open and transparent AI, which is the theme of this conversation today, that pushes the boundaries of human understanding. So a special shout out to the Armenian community. This was, I think, a long time in the making, including our friend Alik. Of course, the government has been super supportive, including our IT minister. Brilliant ideas and exciting years ahead. So he regrets not being here, but he sends his regards. Hopefully next time, we'll do it over Starlink.
Yes, yes,
the connection should be good.
That's amazing. So he texted this to you. How do you know him? How did this relationship come to be?
Oh, I've known him since 2013 through Rakuten. When my company got acquired by Rakuten, I was on the board as an observer. We met in 2013 or 14 and just stayed in touch.
And it's history from
Actually,
there.
I met him prior to that when I was in grad school at Stanford. He came and talked about Tesla when he was starting it out. And we were like, who's this entrepreneur launching a new company? He had just left PayPal. So that was the first time.
Wow.
That's the power of Silicon Valley, right? You get to meet all these incredible people early.
Yeah, that's amazing. And at that point, the idea of Tesla must have been mind-blowing. You know, what do you mean electric cars? How is this going to happen? And
the
now
Roadster.
They've just boomed.
He had designs of the Roadster at the time.
Yeah.
No, but I'm excited. It's great.
So now shifting over to you, you started as a founder and now are an investor. Talk to me about your career path.
So, Parev Poroli, to start with. I was born and raised in Cairo, in a very small Armenian community, roughly maybe 1,000, 2,000 of us, so we all kind of knew each other. And at 15, I left for the US, and I stayed undergrad and grad in the Bay Area. In between, I was in Japan, so I got to see technology pretty early on the iMode phones. This is before there was an iPhone, so this was NTT Docomo's phones. So I caught the tech bug, but in grad school, the first thing I launched was I co-patented something like wax called phase change material. This was between MIT and Stanford. And we built a premature infant incubator for $25 for the developing world. It was a baby sleeping bag with this pouch. You heat it, you boil it in water in the pouch. It stays at the right calibrated temperature an infant needs. So that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. But I had a lot of debt from undergrad and grad. I wanted to do a for-profit startup this time. And that was Viki, the one that got acquired by Rakuten. That was Netflix for Asian content before there was Netflix in Asia. We grew it to, I think maybe it's on a path for a few hundred million revenues now. We had 40 million users when we got acquired. And at Rakuten, I became an entrepreneur in residence and founded an AI company 5 years ago, before it was called generative AI. We were turning data sets into content. And I feel lucky and blessed I got acquired too by Nextdoor before going public. So that's my entrepreneur hat. The investor hat, honestly, was almost as an excuse to stay in touch with my classmates. Like Javi Olivan, who's the CEO of Meta today. We were all like grad students, and we said, let's invest in our classmates, in our graph. So we called it Graph Ventures. And we ended up investing maybe in 200 or 300 companies from there. We would make very quick decisions within 48 hours. And as founders, operators ourselves, our motto was to help the entrepreneurs. So that's why it was a very founder-focused, not the product, not necessarily how big the market is let's partner with these entrepreneurs as operators. So that was the beginning of it.
You have exposure as a founder and an investor in multiple different industries. How do you think about, how do you go about that? Because mostly, if you look at tech founders, they start from tech, they end with tech.
Thank you for giving me a second. You play to your strength. Like a lot of what I've done, even if you look at Embrace all the way to Viki, and the play we did with Pixel Labs, there was data as the underlying foundation. If you look at Viki, it was content arbitrage. How do you license Korean dramas everywhere except the home market? for the rest of the world. Put subtitles, put Arabic on, let's say, Korean dramas. You open up the entire Middle East. So there was a data play that's underpinning it. The same thing it was for Embrace, where we were thinking incubators are $20,000. And most people who live in villages who need an incubator don't have access or transportation, or even these incubators are broken. How do we get it out, like to a radius of even 25 miles outside, because infants need that warmth. So I always felt there's data that underpins it. And the startups I looked at, they typically had a data or enabling technology layer, not necessarily the consumer-facing or enterprise-facing, but the underlying data layer is an area that I always focused on. And each of us focused on different areas in Graph. Like Julio Vasconcelos, who has the biggest fund now in Brazil, focused on Latin American startups because that was his strength. So each of us would look at different areas.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now you have Playtime VC. You launched this with Messi. How did that relationship happen? I know it's the elephant in the room.
Honestly, I just feel so lucky that that one day we met with Rakuten. There was a board member called Didac Lee, and he introduced the family, he introduced the brother and the dad. And I love people that are at their top and that are also very humble. He was inspiring to me. I grew up a big Maradona fan because we have family in Argentina from my father's side. So watching Leo play is just inspiring. It's completely different level. So one day my kids got on the pitch on FC Barcelona. You know how they walk out with the kids? That was the beginning of the relationship. Until we dreamt up, because Leo's vision is how do you do important work and how do you do big work? And I felt if we can build a bridge between sports and Silicon Valley, it could be a really good opportunity. And we're lucky now. Leo is in Miami doing incredible work. So now it's an opportunity to start looking about the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
That's amazing. So can you get me World Cup tickets?
2026, I think so.
I'll follow up on that. What are the fund's focus areas?
The Graph Ventures is very early stage, 250K checks. It's agnostic of the sector. Playtime is a holding company structure, but I would say it's technology first, sports second, because sports tech as a funnel is a very small category. If you look at almost as a spectrum, 5 million athletes on the pitch, and you have 5 billion fans. So we're more focused to where the fans are, because that is the much larger market. And I would say 2/3 of our investments will be pure tech and the enabling technology side, what we're calling RAISE, which is robotic, AI, and space, our areas. So that's why with that quote, I was particularly excited about what we can do in space, because we're looking at the moonshots.
When you look at companies to invest in, what are the key factors that you're looking for to make that decision?
It varies by stage. I think on sports technology, the checks will be smaller, maybe 2 to 5 million checks. For the growth technology, it'll be more on the 10. Ultimately, you're still indexing on solving something very unique. And we like to find the ability of finding companies before they hit that inflection point. So I'm looking for things that are pre-inflection points, perhaps by 6 months. And I always ask, is this the right team to be able to hit it? Because sometimes there are incredible teams for the wrong product or incredible teams for the wrong market. And I've learned the hard way, because I was one of those founders. I might not have been the right one for the very early stage of it, going 0 to 1. But the skill set is very different, 1 to 10 and 10 to 100. So in those stages, we look for sort of the right fit for the founder to be able to hit the inflection point. And we're very data-driven in our approach. I try to stay away from the hype, from be it Web3 or be it crypto or even in AI now. We like that enabling layer, because they're the ones that are powering all this consumer and enterprise plays, that even if some fall, this enabling layer actually will be what's building it. There's actually a very interesting Armenian company. I don't think we announced this, but I think it might be safe to say, that we invested in. It's called Super Annotate. And it started here, I think, from Lake Sevan when they got their seed funding, and we invested multiple rounds. They have incredible clients, all the blue chip Fortune 500, and they are at that enabling layer. They're like the data OS, if you will. So that's the layer that we like.
Do you act as a very hands-on investor? Are you supporting not the day-to-day operations, but more strategy-wise as the company grows?
It's what the entrepreneurs need. I want to be a partner, but I also want to be as hands-off as I can be. I remember my boards were almost war rooms. Most entrepreneurs want to go to the boards and talk about how great things are. I was the opposite. I was like, if I have these board members around me these are like the co-founders I cannot have, like a Reid Hoffman. I have 2 hours of their time. I want to tell more of the problems, have them open their laptops, and fire emails away, right? So I try and be that. I want entrepreneurs to be able to come and say, it's not working. Like, how do we think about this, or how do we go in that direction? So building that level of relationship is important, and I think I'm only hands-on when that's needed. I feel like I'm a wartime CEO. That's always been the case with the companies I've founded. And somehow that partnership is working with founders, because they feel like I'm in the trenches, not just parachuting it in when things are looking good.
That's amazing. We're acting as a mentor, too.
Yeah.
You briefly mentioned AI. How has AI changed the investment landscape? And do you even look at companies that don't have AI embedded in their products?
Well, yeah, of course, but AI is 20, 30 years old, right? Like, it was called many different things because it started with data, right? Yeah. There are incredible companies that don't have AI that we're going to look at, and this ranges, from commerce to gaming. AI could be part of the story, but it doesn't have to be central to the story.
And tech now has gone through waves. We've seen the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows, but now
Yeah.
it seems like AI is bringing us back. How do you think AI is going to contribute to this wave?
Yeah, it's been incredible. I was actually reading on the flight here that almost, I think, 200 million terawatts are being used in energy just to create compute power. And if being a science nerd, if you really think about it, that is almost 20 trillion more compute to be able to actually create models. Like, our brain, even when we're sleeping or talking, we're always using 20 watts. There's always 20 watts of compute happening in our brain. So we're way, way more efficient. I think AI has ways to go to catch up because it takes a ton more to do it. But it's exciting. I think with level of advancements, the areas that excite me in AI are the verticalized one. So broadly speaking, you can think about AI as either horizontal, which is your sort of GPT models or the different ones, the Gemini, et cetera. Or you can think about it as very verticalized. And verticalized gives you depth. And when you are in depth, you can actually really get to understand things like Aurora for weather is a vertical version of AI. Chai1 for biology, which is starting to sequence DNA in much faster ways and coming up with treatments. So I'm most excited about the depth of the vertical rather than generalized AI. And I'm interested in the enabling level, like the examples I was giving that cuts across both the horizontal and the vertical AI.
How do you think that horizontal and vertical AI is going to kind of power through the next 10 years?
If you ask me the next 6 months, maybe it's easier. I can think maybe a week at a time. I didn't even have 6-month plans. Maybe that was a bad CEO side, but it's not clear. I mean, some people don't think we'll ever reach sort of an inflection point where you have the AIs being smarter than humans at the singularity level. Some think it will be at 2045. But I think with regulation, innovation, and everything that's happening around it, at the end of the day, AI is as good as what you feed it. So if you feed it really good information, I think it's going to blow our minds with the level of innovation that the verticalized AIs can do. And the general AI, I feel it is at a J curve, but it's going to get to a point where it's going to be exponentially more difficult to find more innovation after a certain point.
Yeah.
It won't be diminishing returns, but I think it will get harder and harder and harder to kind of wow us. Because now it came out of the blue and all of us are like, wow.
Do you think that there's going to be a lot of consolidation in the space?
It's expensive to be an AI company. We're seeing that in some areas. Like, for example, in gaming, it's starting to happen. Companies that don't have AI are looking at the smaller companies that are AI first. At the larger scale, maybe a handful if it happens, because your hyperscalers, your Googles, Amazons, Metas, et cetera, they're likely going to bet on one or two. And you can see even from OpenAI, Microsoft is effectively the parent company. So I think there will be a lot on the smaller scale, 100 to 200 million exits, and likely a handful for those that might need the firepower of the parent company.
There's also a lot of scare where a lot of people are concerned that AI is going to be a replacement rather than a tool. What do you have to say to that?
Maybe it's very sector specific, like in areas where I think we can advance productivity, I think that can possibly happen. But at the same time, the skill set of people that are training with AI are also getting lifted, and they could catch up with it. I don't think necessarily it's a replacement, but it'll be certain sectors that I think are going to leapfrog in productivity, that they were completely manual or paper-based. It still happens. I mean, there are some companies still using fax machines, right? So I think there will be certain leapfrogs in areas, but I think we're going to coexist in a good way. It's going to lift both sides.
Absolutely. And now bringing it back home, Armenia is considered the Silicon Valley of the Caucasus. There's so much tech, so many great companies coming out of Armenia. From an investment landscape, how do you look at Armenia and Armenian companies?
I mean, there's so much firepower here. It's honestly incredible. It reminds me a little bit of Singapore. I lived in Singapore for 5 years. That's where our first exit was. We were probably the first and largest exit for 5 years when it happened in 2013. There were no unicorns. There was no technical infrastructure. But if you look at Singapore now, there are almost 20 unicorns. Within a few years, there was Grab, there was Gojek, there was Garena that went public at 60 billion. So at some point, it's slow, slow, slow until it hits. And we have already unicorns here. Perhaps we even have a decacorn, right, among the audience here with the Armenian companies. So I think it's that if we can build the right world-class infrastructure to support that growth, get supportive environment from government, which we get, because Singapore would get us visas for engineers literally within 48 hours. I was just able to build a team very, very quickly. And if we have access to capital and talent, like if those three combinations work well, even if we get 2 out of 3 right, I think there's going to be an inflection point for Armenia. And if you look at unicorns around the world, I think maybe there's roughly 1,000 at any given time. You have 100 in China, or 150 maybe in China, 100 in India. But if you go down the curve, even the UK has 50, Singapore has 20. If we have 3 or 4, why can't we be a top 10 country that produces unicorn? Armenia always punches above its weight, so I think we can do that in technology too.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Can you share any words of wisdom for aspiring entrepreneurs?
I have no words of wisdom. You know, it's honestly, you have to continuously be in learning mode. And I think it's important to not be overwhelmed by the big picture. Everyone wants sort of the big round or the big exit, but I think you should add a brick as a community. Just go at that brick. If the brick is heavy, go there with someone else, carry the brick together, and then eventually you'll see you build something phenomenal. Maybe you build a lighthouse at all, and in the darkest days, you have this amazing fire that's shining. So I think it's important to build it one brick at a time. So I would just say, keep adding bricks.
Brick by brick?
Brick by brick.
I love that. And Razmig, I think you have a message to share too.
We do have a special guest. I know he's a little bit, doesn't want to be on stage, but we're honored to have my good friend Rodrigo Messi here, who is visiting us. He's the first Messi to visit Armenia. And there is a big Armenian community in Argentina, Armenian school, Armenian church, so I was very happy that Rodrigo's here. Rodrigo, do you want to say a few words, perhaps? Can we maybe get him a mic? He's ready with the mic.
Bueno, buenos días a todos.
Hello, everybody.
Sorry, but explain in Spanish.
Voy a hablar español.
Bueno, simplemente estoy aquí. Primero agradecer la invitación porque la verdad que acompañé a Ram en mi primer momento y en primer lugar porque cada día se aprende mucho de él y estamos muy contentos y orgullosos. Y aquí estamos para apoyarle.
First of all, I would like to thank for the invitation. We are supporting Razmig and we are very grateful for this invitation.
Bueno, y también, obviamente, accedí a Armenia y agradecer al pueblo armenio de que la verdad que estoy muy contento.
No, it's okay. Sorry.
Estoy viendo cómo cada vez se está desarrollando mucho más el tema tecnológico y la verdad que es de admirar.
And I would like also to thank to say to the Armenian nation that I am very happy that every day, from the point of view of technology, Armenia is going ahead.
Y bueno, por eso estoy muy contento y muy agasajado. Al final, la gente que me recibió, quiero darles las gracias a todos y contento una vez más de presenciar este evento que para mí es muy importante.
And I once again want to extend my gratitude to the people that have been receiving me, that have been hosting me, and I am also very happy that I am here during this event.
Bueno, y gracias a todos y espero ver que esto siga y continúe de la mejor manera desarrollándose de cómo va el grupo y Armenia.
And I hope that it will be developed in the best way, in its best way, and I am very happy that it will be developed.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Thank you so much. Rodrigo and his entire family, actually bright, very kind, very giving. Honestly, it becomes family at some point. We met, I think, at 2017, so it goes way back. And every time, just at where they are and the amount of talent in the family, it's great to see that they're also in the learning zone and they're just very giving. It's like the quintessential example of give more than take, and I'm so happy he joined us.
Thank you, Rodrigo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was an honor to. We covered so many things. It was an honor to
Thank
share
you
this
so
stage
much.
with you. Give it up for Razmig.
Likewise. Thank you, everyone.
That was great.
Thanks,
that was
thanks
good.
so much.
That was
Appreciate
good.
it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's great.